Hi, I'm Laura Hahn Segundo Collins,
And I'm Joy Han Silva Melora.
and welcome to Hanacity.
Hi.
Hey, Joya. How's it going?
It's going really good.
Mm-hmm.
Doing well. How are you?
Fantastic, fantastic. Um, what's up?
Not much. Just getting
Same old,
ready
same
to
old.
interview this amazing guest
Yes.
who
Shall
is
I?
actually not necessarily, well, not necessarily the athlete that we normally think in our head, but we consider her as a forever athlete.
Mm-hmm.
So she is in that category and a phenomenal athlete in her own right.
Absolutely. Shall I
Yeah.
read her bio?
Yes.
Great. Wait just a second and move this microphone here. Lisa Schlosberg. After losing and maintaining 150 pounds for over a decade by healing her relationship with food, Lisa now dedicates herself to helping others transform their lives. Her journey involved emotional eating, somatic experiencing, and profound mindset shifts that fundamentally changed her approach to health. She's a licensed social worker, certified personal trainer, integrative nutrition holistic health coach, yoga teacher, and public speaker. Lisa brings a multidisciplinary approach to wellness. She specializes in guiding emotional eaters and chronic dieters worldwide towards sustainable mind, body, soul health, replacing restrictive dieting with holistic practices that nurture lasting transformation and wholeness. Without further ado, Lisa. Woo! Welcome, Lisa. We're so happy that you're here.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
How you doing?
Great. I'm actually having like a phenomenal day so far. So this really worked out.
That's amazing. We like that. We like
Yeah.
that we get to be part of your amazing day.
Yeah.
Actually, we're just honored to have you here.
Thank
So
you.
Lisa, me and Laura have been talking before you got on about your amazing bio and what you have done. We wanted to start with, where does your story begin? How did you get to the place that you are now?
Oh, okay. So the long story short here is that it all begins at the very beginning for all of us, right? Like there's no taking us out of the very beginning. So I really like to honor that for me, this started very early on. When I was 5 years old and my baby sister was born early, 3 months early, and then passed away after 5 months.
Mm.
And the reason that I say that it starts there is because during that period of time, in the aftermath of that, while both of my parents were grieving, that is when I found out that food and eating could make me feel better. And
Mm.
food became a companion and food became a comfort. And none of that was conscious to me at the time. I didn't know any of that at 5 years old. But I say that that's where it really started because that's where it really started for me. And so throughout my childhood and into my teenage years, I was, according to my doctors in the BMI chart, morbidly obese. But ultimately what was happening was that I was using food for comfort and I was using food to feel better and I was trying to solve an emotional problem with a physical solution, which I came to understand years later. So so I was really overweight as a kid. I was over 300 pounds when I was 17 years old. And then I went to college and I decided, this is again a very long story short, that I was going to actually really address the weight issue because my body started really limiting me.
Mm.
I was starting to get stress fractures in my feet and my back hurt all the time. And I needed a seatbelt extender on an airplane. And I was kicked off a roller coaster and I was struggling at the booths and diners and the chairs at movie theaters and I was a teenager. So I was inspired to do something about it and I ultimately swung the pendulum from overeating to undereating. I lost about 150 pounds very quickly, because I followed my doctor's orders to eat less and exercise more. I just didn't know that there was such a thing as eating too little and exercising too much. So at the end of my weight loss, I was, with the help of a nutritionist, figuring out that I was starved and malnourished, and I lost my period and I lost my hair and I was freezing all the time. And I had no idea why. I was so confused. And on top of that, the only thing that I could think about was food. And every single calorie I was eating, every calorie I was burning. And I found myself feeling like I was waking up after a year and a half deep in an eating disorder. And I just had no idea how I got there or how I was going to get out. And so I worked with a therapist, I worked with a nutritionist, and I started refeeding and refueling and recovering and gaining weight, eating more, exercising less, and eventually finding mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, social health and well-being, which, lo and behold, is far beyond just the number on the scale. And I have spent the last now 12 years uh really embodying that balance of holistic health and supporting other people in doing the same. So I started as a personal trainer back in the day, about 10 years ago. I became an integrative nutrition health coach, and then I got my master's in social work, and then I became a yoga instructor. Now I'm getting my doctorate in social work. So it's just been this evolving mind, body, soul, hybrid, mental, emotional, spiritual, social, physical, physiological health journey and endeavor for myself and the people that I work with. That's that.
Wow. Lisa, the things that I love what you say is just like there's power in what you say because you're truly vulnerable. And I do think that that's, I don't want to say like a speed up to people's healing process, but I do think that is helpful to people's healing process. And so when you share things about your weight specifically as a woman, that is like so taboo to talk about in our culture, right? And being 17 and impressionable, I'm sure with, I know me as a 17-year-old of being so enamored by what I see on television, what is around me. How much of those influences, how much of your outside environment, I know a lot of it was like the emotional grief on you using food as a tool. But in terms of going from one extreme to the other extreme, how much of those things influence your decision as
Yeah.
being a woman?
Yeah. It's such a good question. And I feel like every time I get a question like this, a little bit of me actually struggles to answer it because, and I'll tell you straight up, like my theory about it all, but it's actually, I think, different than what you might expect. Here's the thing. When my sister died, I taught myself as a brilliant little 5-year-old that every single time I thought about her, I would decidedly not. I would say to myself that thinking about this hurts me and makes me feel really angry. And I really struggled with the anger because it was no one's fault and there was no one to blame. And I didn't know what to do with that or how to cope with it. And I didn't have anyone to talk to or help me navigate that. So the way that I coped with it was every time I thought about Rebecca, I would not think about her anymore. And period, the end. And I trained myself so well that I got in this habit of if I think about something that makes me feel sad, angry, anxious, powerless, uncomfortable, I'm not going to. And my front line of defense, because that's what it was this like epic cocktail of denial and defense and dissociation of just, nope, I don't care, I'm fine. And I really believed that. The same kind of habit and approach came up around the culture. So when I was in a bigger body, I lived a little bit like I was on my own planet. My childhood therapist used to like to say that I was like a skinny girl in a fat suit because she was like, you have no, and not as a judgment, not as a bad thing, actually more as a strength than anything, that my relationship with the culture saying you have to look a certain way or you're bad if you don't was it was full on defense. It was like, F that. I can do what I want. Like, I don't,
Mhm.
this doesn't apply to me. This
Mm.
is so silly and stupid. I'm like, no. So I like to share sometimes that socially, I didn't struggle.
Mhm.
And I thank God for that. I was not bullied in school. I had a lot of friends. I was very popular and well liked, and I felt safe in my social environment because I knew how to make people laugh. I knew how to show up so that I wouldn't be bullied. Became everyone's friend as a defense mechanism, but it worked. And
Yeah.
so it was like, in eighth grade, I was voted to be the captain of my softball team. It didn't matter that I was the slowest person running the bases. It was a popularity contest. And I was dancing on stage, in the musicals in high school. So I lived this life that was very like rejecting of that cultural narrative. And again, it all came from this place of like, if I listened to that or internalized that, it would hurt me so bad that I'm choosing to live as though it doesn't exist. But the flip side of that was that I was able to live as though it didn't exist. So it's like this interesting, I knew it was out there. I knew better than to put myself in scenarios where someone might remind me that I don't look like someone else, but it wasn't part of my conscious decision to lose weight. It was more like, again, my body was starting to really get in the way physically. That was the impetus for all of it. And then it became, I felt very addicted to seeing the results and waking up and seeing that I was in a thinner body. The control that came from that, like the sense, the illusion of control, like all of that became so addictive to me that it got out of control that way. And then it was at a point where it was like, I just want to be thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner. But it felt like all of that kind of cultural narrative like came later for me. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see the control also be enticing, right? Like that's totally enticing. And I'm thinking of it in the sense of like an overall view of like disassociating your feelings. There's control in that too.
Yeah.
And so it's just really interesting how it just evolved as you went through your journey.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah. And I'm also thinking about to be so little and to make that decision. Like, what about the grown-ups around you when this was happening? Like, how did that? I mean, I can only imagine. And again, I'm so sorry for your loss. How was that impactful? That decision to just keep it all in, and you're saying that there wasn't space for that. What was happening with the adults in your life at that time?
Yeah. Thank you. Um, Such a good question. I don't think anyone's ever pointedly asked me that,
Hmm.
other than like my therapist. So here's the thing. What was happening was here's the context. She was born early, but every day for months was the same story. I got the same story that my parents gave me that they got from the doctors. That is, she's getting stronger. She's getting stronger. Everything was good. She's coming home. She's coming home. She's coming home. She's coming home. And then one day she wasn't. And that was it. Um, I never got to meet her, which I still to this day struggle with. But so it was like not just heartbreak and devastation, but so much shock and then grief and depression. Like both of my parents were destroyed, as anyone would be. So so that's what was going on with them. As the story goes, I know, and I don't really consciously remember this, but I've been told that my mom My mom will say in her own words, like, I was in bed for 6 months. Like, I couldn't do anything. I would like get you dressed, take you to school, and then lie in bed. And that's what I did. My grandparents were around a lot. We had a wonderful housekeeper, nanny who took care of us. And then my dad, he gave himself about a week to sit Shiva, which is what we do in the Jewish tradition. And then he just like a flick of a switch turned back on and started going back to work and was just like, we're moving on. We are okay now. We are fine. And so that's what was going on with them. And so I know that some of the belief or narrative was a little bit like, well, you were 5. Like, what did you even know like what's going on, or like how much of this do you know? Or I just kind of got lost in the shuffle. And I have like the image. I'm a really like visual person. And there was one of my therapy sessions years ago where I started drawing. And I have this drawing that I made of like a tiny little stick figure, like all the way at the bottom of the page. And then all these really tall stick figures like taking up the rest of the page.
Yeah.
And it was just covered in question marks. And that's what I remember feeling like, was like, I'm just down here looking up for any answers or guidance or ultimately connection. But they were just all up there. They were all so far away in the adult world where they were all talking to each other about what happened. And again, I learned really early on to pretend to be fine, which I think I love my dad. I wanted to be exactly like him. And so I was. And I was the strong one. And I just went back to doing life. And then to also answer the question, it was believed by the adults. The story became that I was so wise and so mature and so strong and so capable and so independent and so it was kind of this like prophecy that became fulfilled a little bit, where I pretended I was fine. They believed I was fine. So I pretended I was fine. They pretended I was fine. And we played that for my childhood ultimately, which I think is also why I finally started looking at myself, including my body, my weight, my relationship with food once I moved out.
That totally makes sense. That
When
totally
you
makes
also
sense.
had to parent yourself at a very young age, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did the adults respond to what essentially became an eating disorder?
Yeah.
Are you ready to embrace a healthier, more vibrant life? Look no further than With Joy, a transformative movement and nutrition program that goes beyond the ordinary. Our approach is rooted in compassion care, tailored to each individual. Whether you're a seasoned athlete or just starting your fitness journey, we've got something for you. Our comprehensive programs include strength, mobility, and conditioning to elevate your fitness, recovery and recuperation for healing, and nutrition wellness plans to fuel your body for optimal performance. Check out our show notes for more information and links to our programs. Join the With Joy movement today and discover a whole new way to thrive.
Well, first it was really exciting. There was a lot of praise and happiness and congratulations, and ultimately I think relief. Like I know that my parents, they tried so many things. I was at Weight Watchers when I was 9 years old. I was taken to all of the dietitians and nutritionists and doctors and specialists, and it was littered throughout my whole childhood. How are we going to help Lisa lose weight? And then I never stuck to any of it. And so I think my parents were really scared about my health, and not just about me being bullied in school or things that they were worried would happen, but really about my health and like what was going to happen if things didn't change. So I think there was a lot of relief fundamentally, and just like joy and excitement that a lot of weight came off. it was kind of like I finally did the thing, like the thing that had to happen. I know I felt that way. I think everyone kind of did. But then I remember getting to a point where I was speaking to a nutritionist who is actually my mom's friend. And the first time I spoke to her, she was the one that said to me, "These are eating disorder tendencies."
Hmm.
And I was like, huh? Like I was just on a diet. I was just doing literally what everyone always told me to do. But then a couple of months later, after I struggled really to feed myself adequately, I remember her saying to me, "This is how I treat my anorexic patients. Like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to give you a bit of a meal plan. I'm going to tell you how many calories you need to be eating. You need to eat 1 hour within waking up. You need to I had structure." And the reason I go back to that story is because I remember coming inside and telling my mom, "I have an eating disorder." And I felt almost like validated. Like I was just like, someone knows what to do here. Like I didn't feel really ashamed of that. I felt like, okay, now we have answers, you know? And I remember my mom kind of being like, "Really?
Hmm.
Is that like, are you sure that it's
Hmm.
like, quote unquote, that bad?" And I remember like my dad's reaction to a lot of it was just kind of like, "You're thinking too hard. You should just like relax about it." And I just remember being like, "God, you have no idea, like no idea what this is like." So it was very confusing, but I will also add there are, how do I want to say this to the public? There is mental illness in my household. So there was also the context of it was that I was the normal one. I was the healthy one. I was the one that didn't struggle. I was the one that didn't have a disorder. So I think it challenged a lot of the household paradigm to say, I struggle. There's a name for it. I need help. I need support. I need professional guidance. Eating disorder, something the DSM applies to me. I think that they weren't necessarily ready for that. Uh, so yeah.
So interesting, Lisa, because Laura and I, we were childhood athletes, and food was such a huge thing with our upbringing where it was taken away from us, and it's really like regulated. There's a lot of control on those things. But it's so interesting because there's such parallelisms like to your story in the way of like people pleasing, and trying to operate and disassociate feelings and doing things for results and trying to be the easy child in a lot of ways. And so this is just very fascinating. And how you overcame those things. I think it takes a lot of credit on who you are as a person to be able to define those things and to be able to go to your parents and say, "I have an eating disorder," because I think that is really rare. It's usually the other way around of somebody bringing it to somebody's attention and it takes a while. And there is shame in that. And I think it's amazing that you didn't have that. It was more of like with you looked at it as answers in a lot of the way of your upbringing, even when it comes to your health of wanting to shift your diet plan and, that you were getting fractures and all those things. And I do think that there is something about your personality that those things came out. But I think that the overall theme that I think we all connect to is that we're also human. And there is this human aspect to this that nobody is perfect and nobody has their shit together all the time, and that we all are vulnerable to things. And I think that is the power of your story, is that human connection. So I think that's really powerful of your vulnerability, your ability to see things, but also say that I needed help and I needed to shift my perspective. And it takes a community to do that. And I think it's brilliant that you had your nutritionist that was by your side, that was able to say, here are tendencies, because that is so powerful to have in your community of support.
Amen. All of that. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
So going back to the point, now you're in a state of reclaiming, it feels like, getting to know yourself and your body for the first time in a new way. Can you walk us through and walk people who are listening through what's that like to get to know yourself in this new way, maybe for the first time?
Yeah. Oh, what a question. Thank you. So, yeah, I think for me, the biggest thing that I could say to that, because now, it's been years, is I had this belief system as a kid, which again was like denial and defense, but I did believe that I don't have feelings. And like
Hmm.
feelings are so extra. And like people who have feelings are so dramatic and like sensitive. And like therapy is such a joke. And like it was all just this like, none of that applies to me. And so for me, part of getting to know myself really started with actually, I'm not fine. Actually, I care about these things. Actually, I don't like this. Actually, I do like this. Actually, I get sad. Actually, I get scared. Turns out I am vulnerable and sensitive. And there's all these different parts of me that I have just been pushing away and pushing away and pushing away. And food really helped me do that. So I think whereas there's so much I could say, I could also almost like boil it down to that shift from I don't have feelings. I don't need anyone. I'm fine. I'm always okay. I'm good. Leave me alone to like, oh, wait, actually, I have feelings. Then it's like, okay, a lot of the things from there kind of answer themselves. It's like, okay, well, what do I need to do about that? How do I integrate this information and how do I let that inform my life? Well, when I have feelings, I feel them like that. And that's really hard to do sometimes. But it's like when I feel like crying, I cry instead of what I used to do, which is like, I feel like I have to cry. I better not lock it in, right? Where it's like, so when people say, around food and eating and stuff, I always laugh when it's like, it's a lifestyle change. And it's like, yeah, but this is the kind of lifestyle change I'm talking about, where it's like when I feel stuff, I let myself feel stuff. And sometimes that means setting boundaries that like actually I can't do this, or actually I'm choosing not to do this to really honor myself.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of ways that it like shows up, but it's really about saying like I am a complex, multidimensional human being. So how can I live to support that? And so like a quote that I say all the time in my own work is you're a spiritual being having a physical experience with an animal brain in a social context. So
Ooh,
like
yes.
what like
Wow.
how can I honor that? How can I embody all parts of that all day long? And then, there's like crying about it when I'm sad. There's journaling about it. There's going to therapy. There's setting boundaries. There's self care. There's putting myself to sleep at night. There's eating nutritious food. There's moving my body. There's yoga. There's breathing. I can give you the laundry list of things, right? But it's all about supporting the mind, body, soul system.
Yeah.
Really.
100% for sure. And I mean, I like to say that when you make those kinds of changes, when you have that realization for yourself, it's kind of like throwing a rock into a very still pond. How did your people around you, your environment around you, when you started increasing this awareness about yourself, how did they respond to you?
Yeah. Such good questions. It really, it's like a slow burn. And in different ways. So I'm thinking about like the first thing that comes to me is like my friends. And I think the way that uh sometimes people, especially I've heard when people either gain a lot of weight or lose a lot of weight and they see their social circle changing. I didn't. A
Mm.
lot of my friends that were my friends at my heaviest weight are still today my best friends. So I think that's a testament to a lot of things. But I say that because they would be like, I'm thinking specifically about like my college friends, and they would probably be the first people to be like, she is so different than when we first met. Like, I was I was a persona when we first met. Um, but there was such a like deep connection that was always there, that they have been along for the journey, the highs and lows, like all of it. But it's not like it was steady all the time. It was like, oh, I am responding very differently to things now than I did in the past. But I had and have some really solid friendships that I'm very grateful for. And I still think that I hesitate to say this, but it's just true. It's just true that my family, it's hard with family of origin because like we get so in those roles, So like I think still to this day, there's some of that like, oh, you're fine. Or like, oh, you don't care stuff because it's so habitual in the family system that sometimes it feels like that's the last area to like catch on. And then there's like, I think about my therapist at the time who kind of like the energy that I received from her was very like, yeah, I've been waiting for this. Like yeah, like it made total sense. I remember when all my weight came off and she used to say things like, make analogies of like the weight on my body to like a shield of armor or like a protection. And I used to be like, that is absolutely not the case. That is not me at all. I don't know about, maybe some other people, but definitely not me. And then when I lost all the weight, I remember going to her and being like, I feel naked all the time. Like I literally feel like someone ripped my skin off and my guts are walking through the streets. And so she was just very like, mm-hmm, this makes all the sense in the world. And I felt extremely supported by her. So it's like it's different in different areas.
Yeah. So crazy. So Lisa, I know that you do personal training also. Like in terms of your career and finding your journey of who you are today and how you chose your profession, it really seems like it was destiny that brought you to where you are in a lot of ways. Because like I don't think it's by accident that you help people in this way because your story is so unique. Like you said, a lot of your answers are not the expected answers, which I think is really interesting.
Okay.
So in terms of movement, in terms of nutrition, and your outlook of being from one extreme to the other, how has that evolved to who you are and how you help your clients today?
Yeah. Thank you. I feel so seen.
Ready to transform your athletic performance from the inside out? Meet Laura Hansegundo Collins, known as the athlete psychotherapist who's revolutionizing mental wellness in sports. Whether you're an athlete, coach, parent, or program, Laura offers 4 game-changing workshops: the Whole Person Athletics Revolution, Connecting with a Trauma-Informed Approach, Remastering Me, Myself, and I, and Mindful Development. For more information, visit lcollinslcsw.com and begin your journey to holistic athletic excellence today.
Yeah. So I started as a personal trainer in 2015. And I started there because I graduated from college and I had a stack of student loans and not a single clue what I wanted to do with my life. And I moved back home. And at that point, I had lost a lot of weight. I was really enjoying exercise and movement, and not just from like a disordered control place, from like like I actually started really enjoying it and loving it. And so when I graduated, the last semester of college, I was like, all right, what do I want to, how am I going to make money after college? I have no idea. But I love working out and I love helping people. So let me do that. And so I started personal training. And I worked at the gym and I learned how to do that. And I found that I really loved working with people, like directly. And then as time went on, I started realizing that the work that I really wanted to do with people was not physical or not limited strictly to the physical dimension. And I found myself getting more and more interested in the places that people were blocked and stuck were mental and emotional. And I was constantly stepping out of my scope of practice as a personal trainer to talk about mental health, which I had no business doing. But it felt so clear to me that, what I say all the time now, you can't solve an emotional problem with a physical solution. And so I was working with people, and I remember even some clients specifically, and I would go to my therapist at the time, and I would be so frustrated about like, why won't they just listen to all the brilliant things that I'm telling them about mind-body connection? And at one point she was just like, that's not your job. They're coming to you to be a personal trainer because that's what you're hired to be. So then I became a health coach, a holistic health coach. And then that's really when I started kind of doing my own thing. And I started working with people. So even at the time, I left the gym, I started training people at my house. And I started referring to it as holistic personal training. So that, for example, like I would start, during our warm up, my vision at the time was a combination of personal training and talk therapy. And now I was in school for social work. So I was starting to kind of like evolve into that position, and I was being trained as a therapist. And so I just was combining all of it, and I would kind of like talk to people about their week and how they're doing and whatever kind of blocks and challenges they're going through. They would work out at the same time. And then the last like 10, 15 minutes, we would do like a meditation or like a mind body practice of some sort. So that was kind of how it evolved there. And then I started taking my own clients virtually as a health coach. And that was really the beginning of it. So now I really miss personal training with people in person. I haven't done it in a few years. But now I have a group coaching program. So I built a coaching business. I had a lot of one-on-one clients. And I noticed that I was having the same conversation over and over again and teaching the same stuff over and over again. And that became the origin of my group coaching curriculum. So now the program that I have is a 14-week program. There are 12 modules, and it's like everything I wish I knew, and it's everything anyone really needs to know about healing their relationship with food from the inside out in a really holistic mind, body, soul kind of way. So it's taking the physical health stuff. It is nutrition, it is exercise, but it's also all what I think is like the juicy stuff, like the limiting beliefs and the dysfunctional thoughts and the emotions and how to feel safe in your body with yourself, self-compassion, radical acceptance, all of that kind of in a package. So that's what I do now.
I love that. I love that a lot.
Yeah.
Just so different.
Totally. And I love that on your social media, you're so personable. I love that you share your story. Your story has become such a space of healing for other people. So I really appreciate you when you share, like down to your workouts and how you can go hardcore on your workouts and what that means for you. That tracks and resonates with so many people. You just really meet everybody where they're at in many ways. You're so social worky.
I really appreciate that.
Incredible.
So Lisa, where are you at now in your space? This season, we're talking about process, we're talking about journey. We have a lot of athletes, coaches, guardians, people of all walks of life, lots of forever athletes, lots of people who are, and we're not talking about like competitive athletics. It can be just like getting out of bed in the morning. We're talking about life of athletics. Where are you at now in your journey, in your process?
I am in the process. I'm just here. I feel like I definitely feel the safest in my body and with myself that I ever have. I feel very connected to myself. And so how that plays out around like specifically something like movement, there's an intuitive approach. What does that mean? Like I think about like this week as a prime example. Sunday, I went to a yoga class, which I loved. Yesterday, I was lifting weights at the gym. This morning, I ran sprints. And how do I know like what am I going to do every day? Is because like I wake up and I feel like this is what I want to do today. And then there are going to be days where it's like, I think I need to rest. and then I'll do that. So it feels like that's where I am, is like it's not rigid, it's not controlling. I know what that feels like. I've been there, but it's also intentional. Something that comes up, at least in my world with a lot of my clients, is the tendency to like, again, kind of swing the pendulum and go from that like really rigid, like hyper fixated approach to just like completely dissociating and being like, okay, well, if I'm not doing that, I'm not doing anything. And kind of being in that defense of like, well, if I can't work out every day, I'm not going to work out any day. Right. So for me, it's very intentional. It's mindful. It's like I care about my health and I have to do things to maintain my health physically, mentally, emotionally. But I feel very like in the dance with it. It feels like I'm on my own team. At the end of the day, more than ever, more than anything, I just like really have my own back. And I
Mm.
feel like it doesn't matter, the rest doesn't matter. The rest doesn't really matter,
Mhm.
whether wherever you are on the spectrum, wherever you are in the pendulum swing, like, can you just be on your own team?
Mm.
And then, who cares about the rest? That's where I am,
Mm.
I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it also gives
That needs to be
like,
a tote. Can you be on
yeah,
your own team?
exactly. It also brings like empowerment to your clients, I'm sure, right? Like if I'm making the decision for myself, I can say whether I can go hard and do the 10 different exercises in the week, or if I need to scale back that day and take a day of rest. That brings so much empowerment to the individual to be able to, like you said, the mind, body, and soul connection, to read your body and to have ownership of your decision, which I think is something that um, is not necessarily taught. And like you say, like there's a regimen plan. It's like pretty rigid. Follow X, Y, and Z. Don't eat this many calories, work out this many times, and then you get into the cyclical cycle that we think we all need to do in order to be quote unquote healthy, right?
Right.
I love the more holistic idea of, and kind of what me and Laura love is like the whole person, right? We're
Yep.
looking at the whole person in this and what works for each individual. And I'm sure what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for the other, right? Like we're all wired in a different way. It's called, we're human, right? And so as somebody who works with clients, who's a coach, who's a mentor, you really do have to take each individual and be able to see that person clearly in order for it to be effective, which I think is unique in the sense because what most people want is a plan of action that's going to work for everyone. And that's the uniqueness of what you have. And so kudos to you, Lisa, and way to go for making something different because these are the types of programs that we want to uplift and we want to amplify because we think that these are things that are important. And me and Laura being athletes who, like I said, we've had a very unhealthy relationship with food. I also am a nutritionist and work with clients as well and know that what works for me doesn't necessarily work for everyone else as well. And my relationship with food has been a long journey and what is healthy and unhealthy, and having to rewrite all those things of being like, there's no such thing as bad foods, right? Like that's also like something that was so shocking to me because as an athlete, we weren't supposed to eat certain things. And the fact that, like you said, using food as a coping mechanism to make you feel better, but also know that food can be enjoyable, food can be pleasurable. You can enjoy things guilt-free too, and that's okay as well. It was also like a mind-boggling thing for me to like learn in my 40s. So, it's been a long journey. And so it's really great to be in community with you, Lisa, to have somebody who's like-minded and to know that we're both on the path of hoping to shift a culture that is really unique and different and being told in a different way. And hopefully this will help many people. So yeah, just keep what you're doing. Rock on, sister.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And before we're coming down to the end, but for anybody who's listening that might be interested in working with you, getting to know your program, how can people reach out to you? How can people connect with you?
Yeah, so you can totally feel free to email me directly, Lisa Schlossberg at gmail.com. That's SCHLOSBERG. That is the hardest part. Lisa.Schlossberg on Instagram. My website is outofthecave.health. So you can find more information on the services page about what that program is. If you have any questions, contact me through the website. If you make an account on the website, you'll also get a bunch of freebies, workshop recordings, etc. And then the Out of the Cave podcast is my podcast. So if you want more of all of this, there's a ton there.
Awesome.
Also,
Fantastic.
are you going to tell them about the retreat?
Oh my God.
Wait, don't forget the retreat.
Like I need an agent to be like, can you post this on stuff? I literally forget. Thank you for
Shameless
the
plug
reminder.
here.
Okay, so the Omega Institute here's my little Omega mug sitting right next to me. I'm doing a retreat in person for 5 days at the Omega Institute in upstate New York, September 7th to the 12th, 2025. That is 5 days with me and a dream team of guest instructors to really learn and embody and integrate all of this work. So anyone who is struggling with food, eating, body image, any of it, that is really like a one-stop shop. So if you go to my website, outofthecave.health, there's a little pop-up in the top that will lead you directly to the Omega Retreat information. And I hope to see you there. It's going to be so amazing.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Lisa. Before we end, we always do a little thing called lightning discuss. It's a very simple question. Everybody answers. Would you like to play?
Yes, of course.
Great. So the question to discuss is favorite go-to snack. Discuss.
Okay. I have it. This isn't, God, I overthink everything. Okay, so I'm going to say, because I trust when something comes to me, I'm just going to throw it out there, but it's not like it's not the most common. I'm not going to say it's a go-to, but I love blue Doritos. I love Cool Ranch Doritos.
Oh, okay. I was like
Whoa.
blue Doritos. That's a new one. Okay,
Yeah,
Cool
no,
Ranch.
like
yeah,
like the OG, not the nacho ones, but the
the
Cool Ranch
The
Doritos.
Cool Ranch.
And I think the reason I'm thinking about that so much is because it's become literally a running joke in my community that I literally pressure everyone to be like red or blue Doritos. What team are you on? It's become like a heated, ongoing debate. It's a whole thing in the Out of the Cave alumni community. But
That's awesome.
that I love blue Doritos. And last time I was at Target, I saw that they made in like a Pringles type can. They now have mini Doritos, like baby, baby little Doritos in a little Pringles can.
Doritos.
It was the cutest thing ever, and I loved them. So I don't know, plug for Doritos.
Doritos.
I
That's
will
so
say I
cute.
prefer blue Doritos too, if I had to choose.
You know, they have like, I think it's like chili Thai or something like that now.
Now they
They
have
are
like
also
I know
delicious.
sometimes
Purple
Different
Doritos.
flavors.
yeah, sometimes I say red or blue, and someone says purple, and I'm like, I don't even know about that. But
That's my kid's favorite. Purple Doritos.
That's
Ooh,
interesting. All right.
Joy.
Blue Doritos. My favorite, I'm also a chip girl. Like from the time I was young, it was always my favorite snack. But my favorite is salt and vinegar kettle chips.
Mm,
Those are my favorite. Yeah.
very nice. Very nice.
Yeah. What about yours, Laura?
And tying the room together are also chips on this side. It would be hint of lime Tostitos with the queso Tostitos dip, which no, my family's totally into. And they specifically requested it for this past week, which I did get for Valentine's Day. This is our Valentine's gift to the family and crushed it within a day.
Within a day.
Yeah.
love it.
Chips are amazing. My favorite.
Well,
Lisa,
thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. And we just appreciate you.
Thank you. Great question. Such a fun time. I so appreciate it. And back at you with all of it. Like such important work all the way around.
You're the best, Lisa. Thank you.
Ditto.
Hearts all around.
Hearts all around.
Thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions, please reach out to us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.
Share and follow us on Amazon, Spotify, and Apple. Help us out and leave a 5-star review. Thanks.